Remember this famous scene?
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you.
Ah, yes, memories. That was one of the most famous scenes and, dare I say, most controversial moments on the America's Next Top Model series, which debuted, 25 years ago? So like many of you, I tuned in Monday night to Netflix to watch the 3-part docuseries titled Reality Check, America's Next Top Model. This was supposed to be a moment for Tyra Banks, who is the creator of this show, to address a lot of the controversies that happened on the show, and there were a lot. From that famous scene there involving Tiffany, one of the models who was dismissed from the show, to them having some of the girls in blackface, to a girl claiming that she was SA'd, to another girl claiming that she was harassed by a fellow model on the set during a shoot. There were a lot of very controversial moments, and I tuned in because I always wondered what happened to a lot of the castmates, and I wanted to know what happened to the judges, especially the judges J. Manuel and Miss J, and of course Nigel Barker, who were really famous on the show. They were with Tyra, some of them from the beginning, and I thought I would have gotten some clarity on a lot of things, and unfortunately I didn't. I don't know if any of you were into the series. I happened to watch America's Next Top Model in real time while it was playing. I think I may have checked out season 15 or 16, if I'm not mistaken, just because it became very repetitive, and then I just was like over it. And now I see Tyra Banks is teasing that she's going to be doing a cycle 25 of the show. And so I guess that this docuseries was supposed to be her way to address these controversies, just to kind of get it out of the way before moving forward with season 25. Now, I thought she would have been very open about what happened, taking full responsibility. Instead, I got a lot of excuses from Tyra Banks, and it almost seemed like she was playing a role during the sit-down interview. She didn't really address a lot of things, and she blamed production for a lot. I'm going to take this step by step. And for those of you who didn't watch the series, you're like, I don't have any interest in it, please still tune in, because I think there's a lot to glean from this, right? Tyra Banks is a world famous model. She was a Victoria's Secret model. She had, covered many magazines back in her day. She came up, I think after Naomi Campbell, at a time when there weren't a lot of black models on the runway. There still aren't a lot, but way more now than there were, years ago. What I really enjoyed about the series was her sort of documenting her whole journey to having America's Next Top Model, wanting to look at her second act in life. And not only that, she had an interest in American Idol. She had this interest in American Idol. She liked the reality-esque part of it. And she said, she questioned what Kelly Clarkson, who was the first winner of American Idol, would do when she was off, when the cameras weren't rolling, what was going on. And so she came up with this concept of having a show that would give girls who ordinarily wouldn't have had a chance in Hollywood an opportunity to get into the modeling game. And I think that's what interested me, because Tyra, being somebody who was a black woman who didn't have a lot of opportunities, starting her own show and having that insight about what it takes to not only be a model, but to navigate the fashion industry with all their, racism, their biases, all that stuff. I thought it would have been really good. And I thought she would have functioned almost like a den mother or a big sister to these girls. And she did, to her credit, give a lot of girls a wonderful platform, plus size girls. I think Winnie Harlow was on the show. She has vitiligo. Girls who had textured skin, not the smoothest skin, she gave them an opportunity. One of the cycle winners, Eva Marcille, was not very tall. I think she was 5'5" or 5'6". They said 5'7", but later on I think they said she's 5'5", 5'6". So a lot of these girls would not have had a chance in Hollywood. So she did put a lot of people on. But by being on the show, a lot of those girls had to face a lot of stigma, even when they went into the fashion industry. So even if they got representation with modeling agencies, they were treated differently, because it wasn't the way it is today, where having a big social media following or coming from a reality show, you have a lot of fans built in already, and people like that. Back then, there was a stigma, you didn't really earn it. You went on a show and then you got it. American Idol kind of faced that stigma as well. But so I really love that aspect of it. But where I think I just kind of fell out with America's Next Top Model is because I found that Tyra, who had talked so openly about being bullied in the industry, especially by Naomi Campbell, supermodel Naomi Campbell, basically turned right around and bullied a lot of these girls. They had some crazy moments on the show where girls who were in a competition who weren't even guaranteed to win were asked to do like really invasive dental cosmetic procedures. There was one girl by the name of Danielle who had a gap in her teeth, her two front teeth. And Tyra was like, nobody wants to really see, like that gap. Nobody's going to be thinking like easy breezy, beautiful cover girl and looking at your gap, which is kind of crazy because Lauren Hutton was a model. She was an actress as well. And she famously had a gap tooth. And then there was another girl, I can't remember her name right now, a blonde hair girl who had, she had some dental challenges. She had like a snaggled tooth in the front and they signed her up to like remove 4 of her teeth.
Look at my teeth. Horrific.
And the girl was in excruciating pain and it was documented in the series. And I remember watching America's Next Top Model in real time. And I was like, why the hell would they take 4 of her teeth out at one time? Unless it was like severely impacting her or like causing her pain. Like this was just a competition. So it was things like that. The blackface episode, of course, was it was controversial back then to me. Like a lot of people today are saying, oh, we're holding America's Next Top Model and Tyra to standards of today. But I watched that in real time and I was like, what the hell is this? You turn in a white girl black? Like that is blackface. But, they proceeded with that. They had a lot of controversial moments. And so I bring up all of that to say this. I thought, considering that Tyra Banks has had years to mull over the criticism that she and her team have faced, that she would have sat down in this interview, because they teased it so heavily. I thought for sure she was going to say like, I feel sick to my stomach about what I did to those girls. I feel sorry that I bullied them. I was a mean girl. I wanted some accountability and all I got was a lot of dodging, ignoring questions, blaming production, blaming other people. And it just was really frustrating to watch. It was like, why am I wasting my time tuned into you? Like I automatically started believing a lot of what the other girls were saying. And of course, her castmates, Mr. J, Miss J, and Nigel Barker. Another one of the things that I wanted to point out is, Tyra has a lot of blame, on her shoulders and rightfully so. But I don't want to give the other judges so much of a pass because during that time, they were mean-spirited, many of them to the girls as well. Again, I remember this model, her name was Kenya. I don't remember her last name, but I'll put it up on the screen. And I remember her doing a photo shoot. And I'm sure many of you who watch the show, you remember this, but she was doing a photo shoot in Africa somewhere. I can't remember which country. And this male model was being very inappropriate to her.
There was a line that I feel was crossed. He's grabbing my legs.
It was wrong, and for some reason, no one really seemed to see it.
And like touching her thigh, and like making sounds when he was like right up on her. As a matter of fact, I'll put a photo on the screen. You can see his hand there on her thigh. But if you were watching it in real time, Kenya really felt a type of way. She was like maybe early 20s. And she was telling them like, hey, there's something going on the set without trying to be unprofessional, without trying to create like a ruckus. She was letting them know that she wasn't feeling comfortable and they were like ignoring her. All of them, all of the judges at the photo shoot. And so there's a lot of blame for them as well. So I don't like this aspect of it where Tyra by herself is being thrown under the bus. But, she is the creator of the show. It's her show, so she is going to shoulder a lot of blame. And I just did not like the fact that she just seemingly kind of skirted so many issues and ignored so many like direct questions. And it almost seemed like she was in a pageant. Like if you watch her presentation, this really weird, like fake smile, like, yeah, no, it's production. Yeah, no, yeah. Ooh, that was a bad call. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the blackface. Yeah. And it's like no accountability.
Some say the judges and Tyra Banks offered more excuses than real apologies for what happened in the show. Do you agree?
Oh my gosh. So I'm watching a live with Jay Manuel and Nigel Barker, and they're saying, now's the time maybe for us to make amends. And I was like, okay, great. Let me tune into this documentary and let's see this amends. Let's the apologies. Where is it? Nope, not one. Accountability, nowhere to be found. And I hate that word because I feel like it's overused. But no, I feel like it was just nothing but blah, blah, blah for them mostly. And we were just kind of like sprinkled in there.
We took away one thing from watching this. Tyra's really not that sorry.
And even when things were explained to her,
Yeah. It seemed like she almost had a character on the whole time, too. Does that
seemed
make sense? Like she was like
yes.
looking in the camera and being like,
and she
like
was
model
talking
smile. Yeah.
like this, like she
Yeah.
was hosting.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel real.
And
It didn't
even the
feel
emotional
genuine.
stuff after they were all fired. And she was like, and I cried myself to sleep that night.
I was like, I don't believe
I was
you.
like, I don't believe you either.
Ken, he was definitely not sorry about anything either. I was sort of blown away by watching it because no part of me was watching it going, oh wow, they really know that they
Besides,
messed up
maybe
sometimes.
It felt like everybody else was really open about what was going on, as far as like Miss J and Jim Manuel and Nigel, like all talking about their experiences. But when you see the three of them all together, there's clearly a lot of love still there within the three of them. Not so much Tyra.
Yeah.
All right, listen up. If you're here, it's because you love the chaos, you love my hot takes, and you like the crazy shenanigans right here on my channel. So I've got something for you. I want you to support the channel by becoming a member. And in return, you get access to extra content, early access, and a few perks that are only for members. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I pay for this? Well, you're already on here watching me talk about the internet like it owes me money, so this is just the next step. So here's how it works. There are 5 tiers. The first, professional bystander. As a professional bystander, you get a badge, you get members only posts and access to polls and announcements. Tier 2, you're just here for the hot takes. You get custom emojis, members only comment sections, and exclusive short clips. If you want to step into tier 3, well, that's receipts and reactions. Here you'll get early access to videos, longer members only commentary, and priority consideration for topics. Now he's stepping into tier 4, which is the Bad Decisions Club. Whew. If you're in the Bad Decisions Club, you're going to get members only reaction videos, behind the scenes clips, and an unfiltered members feed. And finally, there's tier 5, algorithm risk. You get everything above plus full access to the members archive, members only live streams, and the ability to suggest topics and get shout outs. So if you like what I do and you want to get more of it, then memberships are the way to support the channel and get a little extra chaos in your life. And if you join, I promise to keep the content coming and to keep the takes hot. So if you want in, hit that join button and let's do this. Like, I don't need her to be performative and like, I don't need her to take a whip and whip herself, but I need to feel like it just felt fake. Let me just say it just felt really fake. And I just wanted to see somebody who, after all these years, had done some soul searching and realized, like, Lord, a lot of the stuff I did or allowed on my show was really, really messed up. I give her a ton of credit, like I said, for being a visionary and bringing that show forward, because it really was like a hybrid of America's American Idol and like maybe like some sort of like reality show. I don't know what reality show you'd think of, but like we really saw a marriage between seeing them on stage or seeing them on the runway and then seeing them behind the scenes. And it was entertaining. It was really entertaining. I just wish that Tyra would have just been a little bit more forthcoming in her answers. And then to see the way that she treated her fellow castmates, I'm not talking about the contestants, but the judges. And I'm going to start with Mr. J, who was J. Manuel. He's very well known. He was a makeup artist. He was Tyra's makeup artist for years. He has platinum blonde hair. And I always liked him. He was like the creative director of the shoots. And I liked their chemistry on air. But to find out that he just had started to tire of the show and he wanted to walk away from it, and he emailed Tyra to let her know that he was going to step down, and she didn't immediately respond. She responded like 3 days later with 3 words, just saying, "I am disappointed," and that's it. And then completely froze him out afterwards. And then I think like the the show, like the executives or whatever, they contacted Jay to say, hey, can you just do another season, you know, so it's not like so short notice. But it felt almost like, in his words, like he would have been blackballed, you know, by the industry if he hadn't agreed to stay on for another season. And this is something we hear about all the time, not just in Hollywood, but in the fashion industry. Like, if you don't play the game and you don't do what people want you to do, they will freeze you out. And this is his career. So he agreed to stay on for another year, another season. And after staying on, Tyra just was not even talking to him. And I just was so disappointed to hear that. And when I say she wasn't talking to him, like, they would go on set and she would not even look at him. She would not address him until the cameras were rolling. And that's what I'm talking about. I know some of you will say, well, you know, I don't really talk to my coworkers. You know, I don't have to have a relationship with my coworkers at my job. Yeah, you don't, but you still have to maintain some decorum and be professional, right? You can't just, like, if your coworker says good morning, you just like, I'm not responding. That's unprofessional. You cannot do that. You still have to have some civil discourse with your coworker. And she wasn't even doing that. And what's so fake about it is there was a scene where I think he had asked her a question and she didn't answer. And then when the camera started rolling, she was like super hyped. Like, oh my God. And then she turns to Jay and asks, like, what do you think? And you can see in the scene, like he's like kind of like off put, like, oh, okay. But he's such a professional. He jumps right in and he answers. But you could tell now in hindsight what that moment was about. And then Miss J, who's the runway coach, famous for her walk, all 6'5" of her, suffered a stroke. I didn't even know Miss J was almost 70, but it makes sense because Miss J was knew Tyra when she was 16 years old. And to this day, they don't even have a relationship. They don't speak to each other, right? And so when Miss J suffered a stroke, she said that Tyra didn't, you know, I think she didn't want Tyra to come at first, but it was like Tyra didn't kind of follow up to say, hey, can I come now? Hey, I just want to check on you to see how you're doing, that kind of way. Because here's the thing. I don't know about y'all, but like if I have a falling out with someone who I've known since I was 16, right? And they've been so instrumental in my career, and they suffer a stroke to the point where they are confined to a wheelchair. And let's just say they're mad at me. This is just me. Y'all can tell me how y'all feel in the comment section. But let's just say they're mad at me and they're like, I don't want you to come to the hospital. I don't want to see you. I don't just go, well, they said they don't want me to come to the hospital. They don't want to see me. I'd be like, they need some time. Let me give them some time. And then I'll try again. And then if they still say no, I'll be like, okay. And then I'll try again later on. Like, because if you meant that much to me. But it just seemed like for me, the cast was just a means to an end. And I know a lot of folks will say, well, that's just the business of it. But these weren't random people who she just hired. These were people who were in her personal space, who were instrumental in her life when she was a model. You know, I don't know so much about Nigel Barker, but definitely the two J's for sure. And so that was really disheartening to see. And it was hard to watch some of the girls who talked about their journey and how Tyra just didn't help. And like I said earlier, a lot of the girls talked about going to modeling agencies, and they just were like, they couldn't do anything with them because a lot of the photos that we thought were so great on the series when it was out, a lot of those photos were just overproduced, and that's just not what they want. In their portfolio, they just don't really resonate. If you look at like high fashion models, they don't have like these oversaturated pictures and, you know, a lot of heavy makeup and stuff. It's always like kind of minimalistic and striking because they don't want anything on your face unless you're selling makeup to distract from the product you're selling. If you're selling a purse, but your face is so beat, they're going to look at your face and not the purse or the shoes or the clothes. And so a lot of those photo shoots they could not use. Also, I see a lot of content creators were not a fan of the show, not the series itself, but the docuseries, because, and rightfully so, because I just felt like I liked it. I thought it was well produced, and it really gave me insight to what the girls went through, and of course the fellow judges. But I just was left wanting more because I was like, Tyra, you're not answering anything. Like when they did the promo, and this was the promo.
I haven't really said much, but now it's time.
She's like, I haven't said anything, but now it's time. It's time. When I hear it's time, I'm thinking she's just going to blow the whistle on everything and just say everything what she was going through. You know, just take accountability. And there was just none of that. And I feel, again, that this was just an opportunity to say, hey, I did a docuseries to get people primed and ready for cycle 25. And yeah, I addressed some things, and then that's it, and we move forward. And it's not flying with me. And again, I look at Tyra and I hold her to a higher standard, because I remember her having her daytime talk show, and she had Naomi Campbell on the show, and she just kind of like dressed Naomi down, or at least attempted to, because Naomi, you know, you can't really dress her down. She don't play. But just sort of like being so much in Naomi's face, like, no, you did this and you said this and this is how it made me feel and all that stuff, like really confronting her bully. And then she just turned right around and did that to so many girls. Anyway, I wanted to weigh in on this. I know that this is not typically what you guys see on my platform, but I really felt a type of way. I'm not gonna lie. I just felt like great docuseries, but what a waste of time in one respect, because Tyra she might as well have not been there. They would have done better just talking to the other judges and talking to the girls. That's it. Because Tyra was just a waste of time, and sadly so. Anyway, if you watched it, let me know what you think. Will you be tuned into cycle 25? I don't think they have a distributor yet, but she teased that it's coming. Will you be tuned into it? And again, for those who say, oh, you know, it's unfair to hold the show to a higher standard now because the times are different today and what we're tolerant of is much different than it was, 20, 25 years ago. I will push back on that a bit and say that even 20, 25 years ago, there were people, even though social media wasn't popping the way it is now, there were people who were really upset about, like the blackface situation. There was a girl who is now deceased. I remember this was another controversial shoot. Her friend had died from a heroin overdose. And then I think they forced her to take a photo inside of like a coffin. And that's another thing. I know I was going to wrap up, but I have to say this again. Like, I didn't like how it was so focused on just good television. And it just seemed like it had no ethics. There was a woman whose mother had been unalived. You know, I have to use this word from YouTube. Unalived. She was shot in the head. And they had her daughter, who was the contestant, do a scene where she was, the scene was like a similar scene. Like a crime scene where she was also shot in her head. And I'm like, y'all just sick. Like, for me as a human being, I'm not going to do that. So they ask you in the beginning, tell us about your childhood. Oh my God, that must have been so tragic. Yeah, let's just do a scene where she's shot in the head. Yeah. Your mom died? Let's do a scene like that. Your friend died from a drug overdose? Let's put her in a coffin. And it's like, at the time, I was like, y'all ain't for doing that. So I disagree with those who say, oh, y'all just so pressed because it's a different time now. No, ma'am. No, sir. There are many of us who at the time thought that was just ridiculous. And so do I have an interest in cycle 25? I don't. Because like I said, I checked out. I don't remember which cycle I checked out of. But I know I wasn't there for no cycle 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I wasn't there. Because I think at one point they had men models instead of the women. Anyway, drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Will you be tuned into cycle 25? For those of you who watched, what did you think about Tyra's performance? If you felt like she did a good job and she answered the questions to your liking, say that. And if you felt like she didn't, please say that as well. Follow me on Instagram at This Bahamian Gyal, on my blog at thisbahamiangyal.com, on TikTok at This Bahamian Gyal TBG. And if you'd like to contribute to this channel, please become a channel member, or you can buy me a coffee. All the details are below in the description box. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Love me or hate me, partner.